Hey everybody, welcome to the Project Insulin podcast. We're very excited to have another episode. I'm here today with Haley, and I'm excited to talk about how we're working together. But first, Haley, can you introduce who you are, what you're up to, what do you do for a living?
Totally. I am one half of a creative agency here in the state of Rhode Island called Ripple, and we're a full service branding and packaging agency. My background is actually in packaging design. That's what the degree says on the paper, which is a very niche thing that I think a lot of people don't always inherently go to. It's a little more in depth than graphic design, so that's where the branding world came into play. So that's a little bit about what I do on a day to day. We work with a lot of our local clients here in Rhode Island, like you guys, and we do a lot of beverage work as well as whatever anyone throws at us.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool. And so, can you share a little bit about what we're doing together for the viewers for context? This is being recorded before Pi Day. I don't know when it's going to come up, but we did a little something, a little project together for Pi Day where Haley and the Ripple team provided some pro bono work for us.
Yeah, so our project that we've been working on is a beer label for the Pi Day event. And I think what's really cool about doing work with companies like you guys and Project Insulin is like our way of giving back is kind of a little specific. So if we can do anything like creating a beer label or helping out when we can, that's obviously something that we're going to jump right into. It is something that both my partner and I are very experienced with when it comes down to dealing with insulin and living with diabetics. So it was something that really rang true with us, and we really just wanted to jump in and help out.
Could you talk a little bit about it? What
Yeah.
your rationale for?
Um, when we first were exploring, we were kind of going for two different routes to see what was going to feel better and really like nail the point of the company and to get the messaging across. And getting the messaging across, I think, is actually one of the most important parts about what we're doing and making it something that is easily digestible for people, but also at the same time, like overwhelming, because this is an overwhelming issue that I feel like is hitting people differently really hard. So the design itself is really to, again, be easily digestible messaging that should feel overwhelming. Like we want it to be like an OSHIT moment for the readers.
Kid-friendly programming, I appreciate it. So Pi Day is like our yearly crowdfunding event. It's really about our community and saying thank you to everyone who is in that community, celebrating all the work that's happened at Project Insulin for the last year. So it's overall a very light-hearted event in a world that's otherwise pretty hard, especially when we're talking about rationing insulin and affordability and healthcare in the United States as a whole. I think what's really cool about this can is it really anchors you back into the actual mission. Yes, we're having fun. Yeah, we're going to have a bingo night and there's going to be like prizes and people are going to get pied with whipped cream pies. But at the same time, you still have this messaging of the 58 million people who can't afford their prescription drugs, how much money is spent in the US on insulin, the amount of debt people get into, and how many people are actually rationing their insulin. So to me, this was such a cool design. And then to embed the logo into the words was very cool for us as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And you touched on it a little bit, but could you share a little bit about why Project Insulin means, what does it mean to be working on this project?
My dad is a type 1 diabetic, and he was diagnosed later in life. Like, I think it was his very early 20s or even like 19 to 21, something where I remember, and I don't know if this is like a total factual thing, but someone told me that the later you get it, kind of the worse it's been, the worse on it is or something. So it was definitely a journey when I was little and my parents separated and I went to equal houses. I had best of both worlds. Everything was great. But with that said, it was just my dad and I at his house. And way back when, this is before there were pens and before there were pumps and everything else. And as a little kid, my favorite thing to do was to be able to pull the insulin out of the thing and shoot it into his arm. And You would think by now he would be okay with needles, but he hates needles. So he always had trouble giving himself the shots, which is why I started doing it. So I just started giving him his shots and pricking his fingers, and it was just something that I was always used to. And as I got older, it was really cool to see the evolution of products that came out for him. The pen was a game changer, definitely, for him back in the day, especially someone who doesn't love needles. It was a thinner needle, it was a smaller needle, it was quicker, it was less of a process. And today he has a pump that he just keeps in his pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very interesting. And I know after we met last week to go through the designs for the beer label, you ended up chatting with your dad a little bit about his insulin and diabetes experiences and confirming your memories from childhood.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to make sure I was remembering it right. And my
did it,
sister, my
yeah,
dad
sorry.
remarried and has two other children who are we have a big age gap. So my sister is 17. She's almost 18. I had to think about it because she's one of those weird summer babies. She's graduating high school this year. And when he switched to the pump that he's on now, like even prepping the area, getting it ready, like putting the pieces on, he didn't love that either. So she
Yeah.
used to do it.
Yeah, and it's like you have to, for the CGM, the blood glucose monitor, that's every 10 days. And that's
Yeah.
still not, there's still an injection site. It's different, obviously, it's smaller, but yeah, it's still happening pretty frequently. Did any memories start popping up between our talk and then your talk with your dad about your childhood? Did you think anything about when you were a kid about your dad having diabetes? Did it feel different at all? Or was it just kind of like, yeah, this is what my life is? Or like, this is
It
like a
was,
part of.
yeah, I feel like it was more of like, this is just like what my life is. I didn't know that it wasn't normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there were definitely things like throughout life where we've experienced like when his blood sugar was low and it was just us at home, and I would always know to get him a glass of orange juice, like little
Uh-huh.
things that do become inherently
Yeah.
routine in you. So again, I didn't necessarily know it was any different, but there've been those little things that are always interesting. And even growing up, even by the time I was in like college and stuff, there was one of the trips that he made to help pick me up from school and bring all my bins home from the dorm, and he's putting his seatbelt on and nicked his thing out of his arm and no one noticed that it wasn't in. So that was a really fun car ride home. So
Oh my
like
God.
little things like that, I guess you can call them the normal bumps in the road, just
Hmm.
became definitely part of everyday life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Haley, thank you so much for joining. This is a bit of a shorter episode, but to me, it was just so cool that you had a connection and you really nailed the logo. So we appreciated it and wanted to show love however we could. So thanks for joining today. I don't know if you
Yeah,
have
sure thing.
any last things you want to say. If there's anything the internet needs to hear from you, you can share it now.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head other than how happy I am to be a part of what you guys are doing here. Like I said to you when we were giving the presentation, it really is nice to see what you guys are doing and what you're about, especially when it does hit a little close to home.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Pi Day itself might have passed, but it's still an opportunity to make a donation to help us move forward with drug development. We're trying to raise $400,000 to get through the first 6 to 9 months of drug development. And we can finally share that we are a nonprofit making our own insulin, not a nonprofit that's talking about it. If you have some spare money, that would be great. Or if you don't, that's totally okay. Like and share our stuff all across socials. And thank you for tuning in and listening to another episode.